Yeah, Elon Musk has access to your social security number, and that is not cool. If you want our personal data, Elon, you go buy it off the dark web like everyone else.
Longtime government employees this week were shocked to find that their new supervisors from Elon Musk's Doge department include recent college and high school graduates between 19 and 24 years old.
Now, you might be thinking, I don't want white nationalist Tony Stark to have sole control of the inner workings of the federal government, but relax. It's not just Elon. He has a fully equipped team.
One of the young men is apparently a former intern at Musk's Neuralink company, who goes by the online handle Big Balls.
Want to know the exact moment Elon Musk's online meltdown began? Desi Lydic's calm, cutting critique drew blood, and his Twitter account did the rest. We'll show you the jokes that hit Musk's ego the hardest and sparked a wave of memes. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. What makes a roast hit someone right in the ego, especially when that someone is a tech billionaire who tweets like he's in a Reddit argument?
Elon Musk, the world's richest man and guy who cheers in the wrong parts of Saving Private Ryan. Trump promised us that he'd give Elon full access to the federal government.
Now we have learned that his team has gained access to something extraordinarily sensitive, the system that the Treasury Department uses to disperse almost every check and expenditure of any kind made by the U.S. government.
Elon Musk's sweeping push to make over the federal government, sparking Democratic panic and warnings of a constitutional crisis.
Desi Lydic didn't need loud theatrics or over-the-top rants to shred Elon Musk. Instead, she used precision, a calm, almost surgical approach that turned her jokes into weapons. Some call it a roast. Musk probably just calls it trauma. Desi came in like the comedy equivalent of a stealth bomber. While many comedians go for volume and outrage to roast their targets, Lydic did the exact opposite. She kept her voice steady, her tone professional, and her smile completely disarming. It was like she was leading a corporate presentation, except instead of PowerPoint slides, she brought receipts for every one of Musk's public missteps. The roast wasn't just funny, it was clinical. Think cold steel instead of a raging wildfire. And the quiet precision made every word hit hard. Here's where it got interesting. Most celebrity takedowns rely on anger or exaggeration, and that raw energy can be effective.
Musk has been installing his big balls in a whole bunch of little-known agencies that are crucial in actually running the government. The GSA, the OPM, the OMB, the OC, and SVU. Now, Elon Musk isn't just going to get full access to the federal government just to sit back and watch it function like he's some sort of cuck. No, he's going to jump in there and do some cutting. Big question about this takeover, and the question we'll be asking ourselves a lot over the next 4 years is this legal?
But Lydic flipped that expectation on its head. By staying calm and leaning into that controlled deadpan delivery, she didn't just roast Musk, she stripped away the narrative armor that often protects public figures like him. Her tone amplified the absurdity of Musk's decisions, whether it was mocking the Neuralink Bluetooth monkeys, cracking jokes about Tesla's unpredictably driving into walls, or her biting line about Musk treating Twitter like a chaotic science experiment. Her humor exposed his flaws in a way that felt razor sharp but completely grounded in reality. One of the standout lines in her roast zeroed in on Musk's epic mismanagement of Twitter, and she delivered it almost sweetly. If Twitter is Musk's child, then congratulations. It's officially been left in a hot car. The joke itself is savage, but what really made it hurt was that calm delivery and the implication. No raised voice, no prolonged pause for effect, just a clean line that let the audience fill in the gaps. And the laughter followed instantly. It's that subtlety in her style that makes moments like this land harder than a SpaceX rocket trying to stick a tricky landing. And speaking of SpaceX, she didn't pull any punches there either. She went after its failures with ease, saying Musk's rockets had something in common with him. They start out with ambition, but explode under public scrutiny. Again, those weren't jokes padded with wild antics. They were straightforward factual punchlines that took Musk's business blunders at face value. Now, let's compare Lydic's method to the more aggressive roasting styles. Someone with, say, a John Oliver or Samantha Bee approach might lean on extended rants, flashy graphics, or louder frustration to hammer points home. Those approaches have their place. But in this scenario, Lydic's understated delivery worked almost as a form of satire in itself. It mirrored the kind of hyper-polished PR Musk had always tried to produce.
So for example, with USAID, one of the things we accidentally canceled very briefly was Ebola, Ebola prevention.
I'm sorry, you accidentally, very briefly canceled what? I hate to be giving efficiency notes to the efficiency master, but perhaps next time we keep Ebola prevention going the whole time. So everyone is proud of the job that Elon is doing, and Elon agrees.
And I should say, we will make mistakes. We won't be perfect, but when we make a mistake, we'll fix it very quickly.
The contrast between her measured tone and the absurdity of Musk's public behavior made the jokes feel sharper and smarter. It also kept her critique from sounding personal or mean-spirited, which is crucial when the target of the joke practically lives online, ready to fire back. In fact, there's actual research into how tone impacts satire. Studies show that humor, when presented calmly, can disarm defensiveness in audiences and even make pointed critiques more effective. It's like the difference between a screaming match and a mic drop moment. One might scare people off, the other makes everyone stop and pay attention. Lydic chose the latter with incredible success. She made her critiques land because the humor wasn't shouting. It was whispering in the kind of way that lingers in your mind long after the laughs are over. What really sealed the deal here, though, was that her comedy didn't just make fun of Musk, it broke down the myth of Musk. For years, he's cultivated this image as a big-brained innovator, a tech guru with the answers to save humanity from itself. Lydic didn't attack that image head-on. Instead, she pulled it apart thread by thread, using Musk's own actions. His ego-driven purchase of Twitter, the botched rebranding moves, a series of baffling tweets, to prove how far reality is from the carefully crafted persona.
Today was a big day for Donald Trump. He had a meeting with every member of his cabinet, and he even invited the president. But yes, Elon did have a seat at the table. Well, not an actual seat. He was more looming over it like an Ed Hardy Sith Lord. By the way, thanks for dressing up, Elon. Don't let us keep you from a blackjack tournament in 2006.
The contrast between Lydic's composed delivery and Musk's response was impossible to ignore. Desi landed her critique like a professional fencer, calm, precise, and deliberate. Musk, on the other hand, responded like someone swinging wildly in every direction without any strategy or self-awareness. His initial tweets seemed vaguely defensive, but things quickly spiraled into something that looked more like an unraveling. As the tweets poured in, they started getting longer, more agitated, and loaded with metaphors that made less and less sense. It was as if Musk had decided to conduct a public therapy session, except the audience didn't ask for it. One of these gems described the roast as a pathetic attempt by desperate people trying to cling to relevance. Not only did Musk completely miss the humor in Lydic's calm critique, but the tweet itself ended up doing exactly what Lydic had predicted. Musk couldn't help but prove her point about his fragile ego. As she had highlighted during her segment, Musk has a knack for letting his emotions spill onto Twitter, whether it's doubling down on bad takes or ranting about how misunderstood he is. And here he was again, hitting tweet on exactly the kind of emotional response that only cemented her criticisms. The lack of self-awareness didn't go unnoticed by anyone, least of all, the internet. As soon as Musk's responses started making the rounds, social media collectively asked, "Is this man okay?" Memes exploded almost immediately, with everything from photoshopped images of Musk as a crying baby to captions like, "When you're worth $200 billion but can't figure out how to take a joke." One viral tweet put it simply: imagine being roasted by Desi Lydic and deciding your best move is to live the punchline. Another one poked fun at Musk's pattern of erratic tweets, saying Elon's PR team probably has him muted by now. The reactions didn't stop at jokes, though. They quickly evolved into a full-blown internet moment where Lydic's roast became the thing everyone wanted to reference. Reddit threads popped up analyzing Musk's tweets like mystery novels, while TikTok was flooded with users reenacting his supposed meltdown, using dramatic voiceovers set to violin music. It was as if the entire internet had decided to form a comedy super team, with Musk as their shared punching bag. And honestly, he made it so easy for them. But here's where it gets interesting. Musk's reaction didn't just amplify the initial jokes, it actually reinforced Lydic's narrative. Consider this: a calm, controlled roast paints Musk as an impulsive figure who struggles to stay composed under scrutiny. Then Musk responds by, well, losing his composure in front of millions of people. It was a textbook case of making your critics point for them, while Musk's defenders, yes they do exist, tried to frame his tweets as evidence of him firing back. Most people just saw desperation. As one commentator put it, the man is out here proving he has the emotional range of a teenager who just ran out of Hot Pockets. He's got influence over the stock market, employees worldwide, politicians, and of course the tech bros who treat him like he's some kind of modern day philosopher king. That kind of power comes with a certain level of insulation. People rarely call you out directly when your decisions can change industries with a single tweet, or when your net worth could buy a small country. And even when Musk is criticized, he has a knack for brushing it off or overwhelming it with his massive online following. But Lydic didn't need to shout or argue. Instead, she used humor to bypass those walls. Her roast cut sharply into Musk's public persona, poking holes in his carefully crafted narrative as an icon of genius and innovation. For example, she didn't just highlight the flaws in Tesla's autopilot tech or SpaceX's launch failures. She wrapped those critiques in jokes, like bringing up Neuralink's Bluetooth monkeys, which turned an overly complicated story into something absurd enough for everyone to laugh at and understand. At the same time, Lydic introduced some pretty heavy subjects, like how Musk's supposed commitment to free speech was just an excuse to turn Twitter into his personal playground. She framed it with comedy, but all those points hit close to home, and more importantly, they started a conversation. It's risky to challenge someone like Musk. He has widespread influence not just in business, but also in politics, where he's making big plays. His push to gain government contracts and access to sensitive systems like the Treasury Department's database is a huge red flag. A billionaire trying to get his hands on government infrastructure doesn't just raise eyebrows, it raises questions about how much power is too much. Lydic didn't dive into Musk's political reach with long-winded essays or in-depth reports. Instead, she zoomed out and hit him where people paid attention: his public missteps. She made sure the audience saw how a guy hyped as a visionary spent $44 billion to create mass chaos where people can't even tell the difference between a verified celebrity and someone pretending to be a hamburger. This ability to use humor to break down big issues is where satire shines. Traditional criticism often gets buried under long analyses, but comedy has a way of cutting through all of it, taking aim at the absurdity of situations and making the message stick. For Musk, that meant his posturing as a tech genius, trying to save humanity while simultaneously causing some of the most ridiculous tech-related crises imaginable, was reduced to punchlines that everyone could understand. One of Lydic's jokes painted a perfect picture. Musk buying Twitter is like if a pyromaniac bought a fire station. The humor there doesn't just make people laugh, it gets them thinking about the implications of someone like Musk controlling a platform tied to our communication and information flow. This isn't the first time satire has raised serious points in unexpected ways. Olivia Munn, for instance, once mocked Donald Trump's trade tariffs in a segment that started out funny but quickly led to broader questions about how those tariffs impacted farmers and businesses. Comedy works because it opens the door for conversations people might otherwise avoid. It brings big, abstract issues into the daily lives of viewers, making them not only easier to understand, but harder to ignore. And then there's the genius of what Lydic didn't say. After Musk publicly unraveled on Twitter in response to her roast, she didn't engage. No follow-up jokes, no added context, nothing. Her silence did more to prove her point than more tweets ever could. It was a power move that let Musk's reaction speak for itself and allowed her initial critique to resonate even louder. She said, in many ways, "I've already done my job," while Musk flailed on his own. Expert opinions on satire often point out how a pause can make a punchline land even harder, and in this case, her entire lack of a response became the punchline. Critics and scholars have long studied the cultural and political impact of satire, finding that it creates a unique platform for challenging authority and stripping it of its mystique. It's not about aggression or anger, but about turning the powerful into the ridiculous. Lydic's roast reminded the world that comedy can reveal truths people often want to hide. In Musk's case, those truths revolved around his personality, his decisions, and ultimately his inability to handle criticism without melting down. Lydic's segment wasn't just another comedy bits slipping through the late night cycle. It was a masterclass in humor being used to question power structures. Sure, the audience laughed, but by the time the segment ended and Musk started typing, people weren't just laughing anymore. They were watching as the cracks in his image grew bigger. And that's why this wasn't just a roast. It was a cultural moment that made even a billionaire squirm. Desi Lydic's roast of Elon Musk wasn't just comedy, it was a reality check wrapped in punchlines. By calmly dismantling his public persona, she turned humor into a spotlight on his actions and influence. Her segment didn't just get laughs, it sparked a viral moment that questioned Musk's unchecked power. As clips dominated social media, it was clear this wasn't just entertainment, it was a call to think critically about how satire shapes public conversations. So, who's next to challenge billionaires like Musk? Maybe comedy will remain their biggest weakness, or maybe they'll start taking the jokes seriously for once.